Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another video. So the Acolyte is done. I want to do a bit of speculation and elaborate on a few thoughts on some of the things we saw in the final episode, kind of a sequel to my breakdown yesterday. By the time of the Phantom Menace, the Jedi Council members are pretty astonished by the suggestion the Sith could be back. Now, forget the conversation about Ki-Adi-Mundi. The end scene of the Acolyte introduces Master Yoda. Vernestra, who is now after her former Padawan, Qimir, is about to consult Master Yoda for advice, and the assumption, and I should say it's just an assumption, is that she's about to tell him everything. However, this would create a few problems. Now there is a chance she's just going to consult him about the Senate fallout, and maybe once again she's going to lie through her teeth. But let's assume Vernestra is about to tell Yoda the truth. It suggests that while Yoda maybe didn't know about the presence of the Sith, a century before the prequel trilogy, he was aware of a rising evil threat. This would mean Yoda's disbelief the Sith could be returning was at least in part feigned. As I say, Yoda maybe didn't know about the Sith. I don't even think Vernestra knows. But if Vern is about to reveal the fact her Padawan's gone rogue, that means Yoda was more oblivious than we realize, and could have done something to stop the rise of the Sith. At best, Vernestra doesn't tell Yoda the truth, and at worst, they conspired to keep this secret. To protect the future of the Jedi, Vernestra lied to the Senate, but is she gonna lie to the High Council? And if she does, why can't Yoda suss this out? Vernestra lied to the Senate, claiming it was Master Sol who went rogue and killed the other Jedi. In this fashion, she kept the larger issue contained, so the Senate wouldn't dig into the situation, perhaps uncovering the Jedi's many mistakes, not only regarding what happened on Brendok, but also in the time since. But to do that, Vernestra not only had to misrepresent who was really doing the killing, but also that no one discovered the true dark threat. I think what's likely is that Vernestra is going to tell Yoda that the Senate plans an investigation into the Jedi, and might ask for his help in concealing the truth, and they're going to prevent the Senate from learning they're facing threats from the dark side of the Force, which is also going to put more blame on Yoda than we realized. When Qui-Gon goes up to the council and says he has to deduce it was a Sith, Ki-Adi-Mundi says his famous line about the Sith being extinct, but the camera then pans to Master Yoda, who gives a curious look to Mace Windu. There's a theory that this show, The Acolyte, is providing some more context. What did the look mean? Is Yoda part of a cover-up? Vernestra went to Yoda for a reason. If we find out she tells him everything, Yoda knew about the darkness that brought down the Jedi Order. Did Yoda find out about Qimir and Osha? Did he help Vernestra bring them down? Is that what we're going to see in Season 2 if they make one? And did the victory blind Yoda to the fact the Sith were behind it, but never faced them or confronted them, because Plagueis remained in the shadows? Or as I suggested, is Vernestra never going to tell the truth, and Yoda remain ignorant of what took place on Brendok? When Vernestra in the final episode requests the meeting with Yoda, it is made very clear from the council member who she's speaking to, Yoda is very busy and doesn't have much time, even for the most senior Jedi Masters. So it's not impossible Yoda remains oblivious. But Vern is going to have to choose her words wisely. Are Vernestra's failures going to be hers alone? Is her personal mission going to take place without the knowledge of Yoda? The implications are very important. Now, on the subject of the Yoda appearance, there's a bit of a problem. If you look closely, this is not the High Republic Yoda, this is Yoda from Return of the Jedi. It's the puppets they used for The Last Jedi where Yoda was a Force ghost, and so, because Yoda dies in Episode 6, this is the version of him from the original trilogy. And you might say, well, how can you tell? Well, just look at him. Not only the back of his head looking much more like the original trilogy and not the prequel trilogy, let alone a century before the Phantom Menace, but also he's not wearing his High Republic robes. Lucasfilm have explicitly given us what Yoda looks like during this time, and yet, they utilised the wrong version. Does it ultimately matter? Well, some will say no, but it threw me off a tad. It was the final scene, it was teasing that Vernestra is going to ask him for advice. It matters if you care about continuity. Yoda in The Acolyte is in his 700s, so he's not young, but definitely not as old as he is in Return of the Jedi. As one comment so elegantly put it, did they pull the original puppet from a bin? So with The Acolyte, Leslie Headland in a brand new interview defends the decision to make the Jedi flawed. And she said this: one aspect I was very interested in exploring in the show was, depending on the way you look at it, anyone can be the bad guy. And depending on the way you look at it, anyone can be the good guy. No one wakes up in the morning and thinks they're the villain. Everybody is doing what they think is either best for them, or what's expected of them, or trying to fit themselves in a particular paradigm, or ideal that is important to the institution, whether it's family, place of work, or whatever situation they find themselves in. But she defends Vernestra, and states by the end of the season, Vernestra's been pulled in many different directions, but she doesn't think it's nefarious. She says, I believe she believes she's doing the right thing. And that's why, despite having to do the cover-up, she makes sure to reiterate Sol was her friend. And by the way, if you happen to believe, as many do, the Acolyte changed the framing of the Phantom Menace, StarWars.com has a response. They say the Acolyte doesn't change the events that unfold in Episode 1 and the rest of the Skywalker saga, with the rise and fall of Anakin, the Jedi Order, and the start of the Empire led by Darth Vader. It elegantly hints at the future collapse by focusing on individual failures that can gain traction over time and blossom into much bigger problems with wide-reaching consequences. Well, I feel like technically it doesn't, but for me personally, the framing of the Phantom Menace is slightly changed. Ki-Adi-Mundi's appearance, being aware of some kind of threat, now Yoda being told, May and Osha being an experiment that might or might not tie into Darth Plagueis. There are things which do step on its toes. But Leslie Headland says this, it felt important to me that if we were telling a story about how the bad guys don't necessarily see themselves as bad, but actually can find justification of why their actions are good. The theme of the show, she says, is duality and reflection. So the so-called good guys also have to admit to the parts of them that are bad. I don't see the Jedi as antagonists. I see them as flawed. So with the Acolyte, I feel like we're left with a lot of questions. And here's a little compilation of the biggest ones I've seen asked. The first one being, why did Basil sabotage the ship? The rest of the episode doesn't really work as well without that happening. Maybe this guy's right. Maybe Basil will get his own comic series to explain everything. The next question is, what happened to Mother Coral? I think with this one, Leslie Headland teased that she's going to become a Night Sister. Maybe one for season 2. Will the Jedi face new challenges from the Senate, other than what they already experienced? The next one is, why did Qimir turn to the dark side? Was Vernestra such a bad Jedi Master? Did she push him down that route? Is there darkness within Vern? Then we have the one that this video is about. Why didn't the Jedi acknowledge the Sith in the Phantom Menace? If there were so many signs, if Ki-Adi-Mundi was briefed about the deaths of certain Jedi and non-Jedi Force groups were on their mind, why for the High Council in Episode 1 was it such a stretch? Then we have the mystery of Osha's true motives. Is she really going to fall to the dark side? Is she going to rise the ranks? Is she going to kill Qimir? While Osha appears to choose the dark side at the end, fans still hold out hope she could be redeemed if they do a season 2. And then there's the question of May. Can her memories be recovered? Now that she's joined the Jedi, is she going to help Vern track down Qimir? She's mentally regressed and reverted to an innocent girl. How long is this going to last? And one big question, are we misunderstanding the connection between Plagueis and Qimir? There are some theories stating Qimir is going to be a canon version of Venemous's story. Could Plagueis be hunting his master's other apprentice? It's a wild stretch, but I think I'm sticking with the theory that Darth Plagueis is the big bad. But what do you guys think? What do you make of everything we spoke about in this video? Share your thoughts down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you, always.